the wet concrete of the poolside. Her body was limp, water dripping from her clothes and hair. The scene was nothing like the one the audience had expected to witness. A show turned into a nightmare. Paramedics rushed to her side. They worked desperately to resuscitate her, trying everything they could. Their movements were frantic, precise, but it was clear there was no life left in Marina. The battle was over. The air around the pool was thick with disbelief. People stood frozen, still trying to comprehend what had just happened. The staff continued to administer CPR, but the effort was futile. The life that had once sparkled in Marina's eyes was gone, extinguished in an instant by an animal she had loved and trusted. When the coroner's report came in, it confirmed the devastating truth. Marina had died from blunt force trauma and drowning. The orca's powerful jaw had inflicted injuries that were beyond repair, and the repeated submersion had deprived her of the oxygen she needed to survive. But as authorities began their investigation, it became clear that the horror of that afternoon was only the tip of the iceberg. OSHA and wildlife protection agencies launched their inquiries immediately. What had happened in those final moments? Was there something more to Nyla's behavior than anyone had realized? They soon uncovered a series of disturbing revelations. Nyla, the orca who had once seemed like the perfect partner, had a history, one that had been kept from the public eye. Reports began to surface, documenting a pattern of behavioral red flags that had been ignored for years. Small signs of aggression, incidents during training sessions, and instances where Nyla had shown disobedience to the trainers, all of which were quietly dismissed or explained away. But now, in the wake of Marina's death, the truth was becoming undeniable. The signs had been there, whispered about behind closed doors. Trainers had talked about Nyla's unpredictable moments, the times she'd lashed out, the times she'd shown frustration in the most terrifying ways. But the desire to protect the brand, the fear of damaging the image of the park, kept those warnings from being taken seriously. Warnings were whispered, but never heeded. The days following Marina's tragic death were filled with heartbreak and confusion. The park, once alive with excitement, now stood still, the joy that once echoed through its walls replaced with sorrow. Staff, guests, and trainers alike were left to process the loss of someone they had admired, someone who had dedicated her life to working with animals she loved so deeply. The tribute to Marina came quickly, a memorial held at Ocean World to honor her life and her legacy. Friends, family, and colleagues gathered to remember Marina. There were tears, there was silence, and in the midst of it all, the question lingered. How could this happen? How could someone who loved these creatures so much, someone who spent her life caring for them, meet such a tragic end? But even in the grief, the greater question began to emerge. Should orcas, and all animals like them, ever have been kept